I'm going to read the second book of Adam and Eve. The first book we covered, and the last chapters in that book talked about the conflict between Cain and Abel, where Abel lost his life after Cain was really upset and tempted by the devil to get rid of him. Okay, so the second book of Adam and Eve, chapter 1. When Lulua, Cain's twin sister, heard Cain's words, she wept and went to call her father and mother and told them how Cain had killed his brother Abel. Then they all cried aloud and lifted up their voices and slapped their faces and threw dust upon their heads and ripped their garments apart and went out and came to the place where Abel was killed. And they found him lying on the earth killed, and beasts were around him. They wept and cried because he was a just person. Because his body was pure, from it went forth a smell of sweet spices. And Adam carried him as Adam's tears streaming down his face. And he went to the cave of treasures, where he laid Abel, and Adam wound him up with sweet spices and myrrh. And Adam and Eve continued in great grief by the burial site for 140 days. Abel was 15.5 years old, and Cain was 17.5 years. When the mourning for his brother was ended, Cain took his sister Lulua and married her without permission from his parents. Because of their heavy hearts, they could not keep him from her. He then went down to the foot of the mountain away from the garden near the place where he had killed his brother. And in that place there were many fruit trees and forest trees. His sister gave birth to his children, who in their turn began to multiply by degrees until they filled that place. But Adam and Eve did not come together for 7 years after Abel's funeral. After this, however, Eve conceived. And while she was with child, so pregnant, Adam said to her, "Come, let us take an offering and offer it up unto God, and ask him to give us a beautiful child in whom we may find comfort, and whom we may join in marriage to Abel's sister," the twin sister. So it was the three of them living together now. Then they prepared an offering and brought it up to the altar and offered it before the Lord and began to ask him to accept their offering and to give them a good offspring. And God heard Adam and accepted his offering. Then Adam, Eve, and their daughter worshipped and came down to the cave of treasures and placed a lamp in it by the body of Abel to burn by the body night and day. So they still had Abel's body sitting in that cave for 7 years. Was it sort of mummified or something with those spices and myrrh they put on him when he died 7 years ago? That's a bit weird. Then Adam and Eve continued fasting and praying until Eve's time came that she should be delivered. When she said to Adam, "I wish to go to the cave in the rock to give birth in it." This is a different cave from the one where Abel was laying at, dead. Caves were used as burial sites back in the day. And he said, "Go and take your daughter with you to wait on you, but I will remain in this cave of treasures before the body of my son Abel." Then Eve listened to Adam, and she and her daughter left, but Adam remained by himself in the cave of treasures. What an interesting decision. I don't like that decision. Why are you sitting with a dead body when your wife is giving birth and she might need you? So you have two little ladies trying to give birth and you're sitting here with a dead body. Moving on, chapter 2. And Eve gave birth to a son, perfectly beautiful in form and in demeanor. His beauty was like that of his father Adam, yet more beautiful. Then Eve was comforted when she saw him and remained 8 days in the cave. Then she sent her daughter unto Adam to tell him to come and see the child and name him. But the daughter stayed in his place by the body of her brother until Adam returned. So interesting. It's almost like they were guarding the body. Have they spent all the 7 years guarding the body up to this point? What about when they made that child? Was the sister guarding the body? never mind. Moving on. So, okay. But when Adam came and saw the child's good looks, his beauty, and his perfect form, he rejoiced over him, and he was comforted for Abel. Then he named the child Seth, which means that God has heard my prayer and has delivered me out of my affliction. But it also means power and strength. Then, after Adam had named the child, he returned to the cave of treasures, and his daughter went back to her mother. But Eve continued in her cave until 40 days were fulfilled, when she came to Adam and brought with her the child and her daughter. And they came to a river of water where Adam and his daughter washed themselves because of their sorrow for Abel, but Eve and the babe washed for purification. Then they returned and took an offering and went to the mountain and offered it up for the babe, and God accepted their offering and sent his blessing upon them and upon their son Seth, and they came back to the cave of treasures, where Abel's dead body was laying down. As for Adam, he did not have intercourse again with his wife Eve all the days of his life. Neither was any more offspring born of them, but only those 5, Cain, Lulua, Abel, Achlea, and Seth alone. But Seth waxed in stature and in strength, and began to fast and pray fervently. This is interesting. Very interesting. They only had 5 kids, 3 births, 2 pairs of twins, and then Seth by himself. And then Seth was to marry Achlea, his older sister, which was Abel's twin sister, because Cain already married his twin. That must not be healthy. Chapter 3. At the end of 7 years from the day Adam had been separated from his wife Eve, Satan envied him, and when he saw Adam was separated from her, Satan strove to make him live with her again. So, let's continue and see where this is going. Then Adam arose and went up above the cave of treasures and continued to sleep there night by night. But every day, as soon as he was light, he came down to the cave to pray there and to receive a blessing from it. But when it was evening, he went up on the top of the cave where he slept by himself, fearing that Satan could overcome him, and he continued apart in this way for 39 days. Then when Satan, the hater of all that is good, saw Adam alone, fasting and praying, he appeared unto him in the form of a beautiful woman who came and stood in front of him in the night of the 40th day. And he said to him, Adam, from the time you have dwelt in this cave, we have experienced great peace from you, and your prayers have reached us, and we have been comforted because of you. But now, Adam, that you have gone up over the roof of the cave to sleep, we have had doubts about you, and a great sorrow has come upon us because of your separation from Eve. Then again, when you are on the roof of this cave, your prayer is poured out and your heart wanders from side to side. That's so weird. So the devil is talking to him as a woman. Where is the goal? But when you were in the cave, your prayer was like fire gathered together. It came down to us and you found rest. Then I also worried over your children who are separated from you, and my sorrow is great about the murder of your son Abel, because he was righteous. And over a righteous man everyone will grieve. But I rejoice over the birth of your son Seth, but after a little while I sorrowed greatly over Eve, because she is my sister. No. For when God sent a deep sleep over you and drew her out of your side, he brought me out with her. But he raised her by placing her with you while he lowered me. I rejoiced over my sister for her being with you, but God has made me a promise before and said, do not grieve. When Adam has gone up on the roof of the cave of treasures and is separated from Eve his wife, I will send you to him, and you shall join yourself to him in marriage. and bear 5 children for him, as Eve gave him 5 children. And now look, God's promise to me is fulfilled, because it is He who has sent me to you for the wedding. Because if you wed me, I shall bear you finer and better children than those of Eve. You are still young. Do not end your youth in this world in sorrow. Spend the days of your youth in happiness and pleasure. Your days are few and your trials have been great. Be strong and end your days in this world in rejoicing. I shall take pleasure in you, and you shall rejoice with me in this way and without fear. Get up and fulfill the command of your God. She then came near Adam and embraced him. Girl! But when Adam saw that he was going to be overcome by her, he prayed to God with a fervent heart to deliver him from her. Then God sent his word to Adam, saying, Adam, that apparition is the one that promised you the Godhead and majesty. He does not intend good for you, so the devil, but shows himself to you at one time in the form of a woman, and in another moment in the likeness of an angel, and on another occasions in the apparition of a serpent, and at another time in the semblance of a god. But he does all this only to destroy your soul. Adam, now that you understand this in your heart, you will see that I have delivered you many times from his hand in order to show you that I am a merciful God. I wish you good, and I do not wish you ruin. And that was chapter 2. And yes, I was making that dramatic female voice because it is the devil faking being a woman to tempt him to tempt Adam to engage in sexual sin with her, so that he makes him sinful. He wants to ruin his life, ruin his marriage, ruin his standing with God, all of that. And one thing you see here, it's a pattern across the first and second book of Adam and Eve, is that the devil, Satan, takes many forms. He can look amazing, he can look like a good person, he can look like God, he can look like an amazing good angel, he can turn into a random person, he can seem trustworthy, he can play all kinds of tricks on you. But that is not who he really is. He will not show you his true colors if he wants to deceive you. He will show you some sort of tempting apparition, something you see with your own eyes and you might think is true. Chapter 4. Wait. Oh, that was chapter 3. So we read chapter 1, 2, and 3. Okay, so now we're moving to chapter 4. Then God ordered Satan to show himself as he really is to Adam in his own ugly form, plainly, straight up. But when Adam saw him, he was afraid and shaken at the sight of him. And God said to Adam, "Look at this devil and at his hideous sight, and know that he it is who made you fall from brightness into darkness, from peace and rest to toil and misery." The fallen act, the forbidden fruit, when they ate it, because he tempted them in the shape of a serpent, which was loved by everybody, so it would have more influence. And look at him, Adam. He is the one who said that he is God. Can God be black? As in a shadowy, dark figure of darkness. Would God take the form of a woman? Is there anyone stronger than God? And can he be overpowered? See Adam, look at him bound in your presence in the air, unable to flee away. Interesting sight. So I say to you, do not be afraid of him. From now on, take care and beware of him. He will try to do things to you, to hurt you. Then God drove Satan away from Adam, and God strengthened Adam's heart and comforted him, saying, "Go down to the cave of treasures and do not separate yourself from Eve. I will quiet all of your animal lust." It's interesting. From that hour, it left Adam and Eve. From that hour, it left Adam and Eve, and they enjoyed the rest of the commandment of God. They rested together, but God did not do the same to any of Adam's seed. God did this only to Adam and Eve. So I think when he says seed, it refers to his children, his relatives. Then Adam worshipped before the Lord for delivering him and for having subdued his passions. And he came down from above the cave and lived with Eve as had done before. This ended the 40 days of his separation from Eve. What an interesting, confusing behavior, just overall. Chapter 5. When Seth was 7 years old, he knew good and evil, and was consistent in fasting and praying, and spent all his nights in praying to God for mercy and forgiveness. I wonder when they slept. He also fasted when bringing up his offering every day. He fasted more than his father did because his demeanor was beautiful like that of an angel of God. He also had a good heart, and his soul was precious, and for this reason he brought up his offering every day. And God was pleased with his offering, but he was also pleased with his purity. And he continued doing the will of God and of his father and mother until he was 7 years old. After that, as he was coming down from the altar after giving his offering, Satan appeared to him in the form of a beautiful angel, brilliant with light, with a staff of light in his hand and wrapped with a girdle of light. He greeted Seth with a beautiful smile and began to beguile him with beautiful words, saying to him, "Seth, why do you live in this mountain? It is rough, full of stones and sand, and trees with no good fruit on them. It is a wilderness without houses or towns, no good place to live in. But everywhere there is heat, weariness, and trouble in this location." He said further, "But we live in beautiful places in a world other than this earth." Oh my goodness. Pretend to be an alien. Our world is one of light, and we live in the best conditions. Our women are more beautiful than any others. Seth, I wish you to marry one of them, because I see that you are handsome to look at. In this land there is not one woman good enough for you, and there are only 5 souls in it. This is so sad. But in our world there are many men and many young unmarried women, all more beautiful than the other. So I wish to remove you from here so that you may see my relations, my relatives, and be wedded to whichever you like. You shall live by me and be at peace. You shall be filled with glory and light, just as we are. You shall remain in our world and rest from this world and its misery. You shall never again feel weak and weary. You shall never bring up an offering. You shall never bring up an offering again, or appeal for mercy. You shall commit no more sin, nor be swayed by passions. And if you will listen to what I say, you shall wed one of my daughters, because to us it is not a sin, and it is not considered animal loss. For in our world we have no God, because we all are gods, and we all are of the light, and are heavenly, powerful, strong, and glorious. Man, this is crazy. Chapter 6. When Seth heard these words, he was amazed. Wow! And began to believe Satan's treacherous speech, and said to him, "You said there is another world created other than this, and there are other creatures more beautiful than the creatures that are in this world?" Oh, Satan shows up to people, all the devils and the demons pretend to be aliens and promising you amazing things, a lot more advanced and fascinating and good than this planet has for you. And you believe it, because he knows how to look a certain way. But it's actually a devil. And Satan said, "Yes, you have heard me correctly, and I will tell you more good things about them and their ways." But Seth said to him, "Your words have amazed me, and your beautiful description of it all. But I cannot go with you today, at least not until I have gone to my father Adam and to my mother Eve and told them all you have said to me. Then if they give me permission to go with you, I will come." Seth said, "I am afraid of doing anything without my father's and mother's permission. I do not want to perish like my brother Cain and like my father Adam, who transgressed the commandment of God. But you know your way to this place, so come and meet me here tomorrow." Good job. When Satan heard this, he said to Seth, If you tell your father Adam what I have told you, he will not let you come with me. But listen to me, do not tell your father and mother what I have said to you. Instead, come with me today. Come now to our world where you will see beautiful things and enjoy yourself there and celebrate this day among my children, watching them and taking your fill of happiness and have joy there. Then I shall bring you back to this place tomorrow. However, if you would rather stay there with me, so be it. This is a predator tactic. A child without his parents and a predator trying to snatch that child and trick the child. Oh no, don't tell your parents, this is our secret. Come with me today, don't you worry, everything is great, I'll bring you back tomorrow. It started with the devil and now it's continuing with all kinds of bad people out there, okay? Wow. I hope he doesn't say yes. Then Seth answered, the hope or love of my father and my mother hangs on me, and if I hide from them one day, they will die, and God will hold me guilty of sinning against them. And if they know that I have come to this place, they assume is to bring up my offering, and they would expect not to be separated from me 1 hour. Neither should I go to any other place unless they let me. But they treat me most kindly because I always come back to them quickly. So he's telling the devil that he follows a certain schedule and his parents know, and because he was the child of redemption that was born to them after Abel was lost, and they don't have a lot left, it means a lot to them to continue to have Seth in their life and not lose him, because this would really destroy them. Then Satan said to him, what will happen to you if you were to disappear from them one night and return to them at break of day? Wow. So sneak out at night. But Seth, when he saw how he kept on talking and that he would not leave him alone, he ran and went up to the altar and spread his hands to God and sought deliverance from God. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna sneeze. Excuse me. Then God sent his word and cursed Satan, who fled from him. Good job, honey. Good job. But Seth had gone up to the altar, saying in his heart, the altar is the place of offering, and God is there. The faith and belief makes a difference. A divine fire shall consume what is on it, and so Satan will be unable to hurt me and shall not take me away from here. Then Seth came down from the altar and went to his father and mother, whom he found on his way, and who were longing to hear his voice because he had been missing a while. So they were coming to find him. Very good. He then began to tell them what had befallen him from Satan under the form of an angel. But when Adam heard his account, he kissed his face and warned him against the angel, telling him it was Satan who appeared to him. Then Adam took Seth, and they went to the cave of treasures and were happy there. They rejoiced. But from that day on, Adam and Eve were never separated from him wherever he went, whether for his offering or for anything else. This sign happened to Seth when he was 9 years old. That's crazy. Crazy. Okay, moving on to chapter 7. When our father Adam saw that Seth was of a perfect heart, he wished him to marry, lest the enemy should appear to him another time and overcome him. So Adam said to his son Seth, I wish, O my son, that you wed your sister Aklia, Abel's sister, that she may bear you children, who shall replenish the earth according to God's promise to us. But be not afraid, my son, there is no disgrace in it. I wish you to marry, from here that if you do not, the enemy could overcome you. Seth, however, did not wish to marry, but in obedience to his father and mother, he did not say a word. So Adam married him to Aklia, and he was 15 years old. Wow, that's young. But when he was 20 years of age, he had a son, whom he called Enoch, or Enos. That's how they wrote it. And then had other children. Then Enos grew up, married, and begat Canaan. Canaan also grew up, married, and begat Mahalalel. Those fathers were born during Adam's lifetime and dwelt by the cave of treasures. Then were the days of Adam 930 years, and those of Mahalalel 100. But Mahalalel, when he was grown up, loved fasting, praying, and with hard work, until the end of our father Adam's days drew near. So when he died 930. Chapter 8. When our father Adam saw that his end was near, he called his son Seth, who came to him in the cave of treasures, and he said to him, Seth, my son, bring me your children and your children's children, so that I may shed my blessing on them before I die. When Seth heard these words from his father Adam, he went from him, shed a flood of tears over his face, and gathered together his children and his children's children, and brought them to his father Adam. But when our father Adam saw them around him, he wept at having to be separated from them. And when they saw him weeping, they all wept together and kissed his face, saying, How shall you be separated from us, Father? And how shall the earth receive you and hide you from our eyes? Thus they lamented with words like this. Then our father Adam blessed them all, and said to Seth, after he had blessed them, Seth, my son, you know this world, and that it is full of sorrow and of weariness. And you know all that has come upon us from our trials in it. So I command you in these words. I want you to keep being innocent, to be pure and just, and trusting in God. And do not believe the words of Satan, nor the apparitions in which he will show himself to you. But keep the commandments that I give you this day. Then give the same to your son Enos, and let Enos give it to his son Canaan, and Canaan to his son Mahalalel, so that these commandments abide firm among all your children. Seth, my son, the moment I am dead, take you my body, and wrap it up with myrrh, aloes, and cassia, and leave me here in this cave of treasures, in which all are the tokens which God gave us from the garden. Those spices and stuff were gifts from God from the garden. My son, after a while a flood will come and overwhelm all creatures and leave only 8 souls out of it. But my son, let those who meet will live from among your children at that time. Take my body with them out of this cave, and when they have taken it with them, let the oldest among them command his children to lay my body in a ship until the flood recedes, and they come out of the ship. That's interesting. Then they shall take my body and lay it in the middle of the earth, shortly after they have been saved from the waters of the flood. The place where my body shall be laid is the middle of the earth, and God shall come from that place and shall save all our kindred. But now, Seth, my son, place yourself at the head of your people. Tend to them and watch over them in the fear of God. Lead them in the good way. Command them to fast to God, and make them understand they should not listen to Satan, or he will destroy them. I tell you again, separate your children and your children's children from Cain's children. Do not let them ever mix with them, nor come near them, either to talk or to work. Then Adam let his blessing descend upon Seth and upon his children and upon all his children's children. He then turned to his son Seth and to Eve his wife and said to them, Preserve this gold, this incense, and this myrrh that God has given us for a sign, because in days that are coming a flood will overwhelm the whole creation. But those who shall go into the ark shall take with them the gold, the incense, and the myrrh, together with my body, and will lay the gold, the incense, and the myrrh with my body in the middle of the earth. Then after a long time, the city in which the gold, the incense, and the myrrh are found with my body shall be plundered. But when it is spoiled, the gold, the incense, and the myrrh shall be taken care of with the spoil that is kept, and none of them shall perish until the made man from the word of God shall come. So it's talking about Jesus. And kings shall take them and shall offer to him gold in token of his being king, incense in token of his being God of heaven and earth, and myrrh in token of his passion. Interesting. God also, as a token of his overcoming Satan and all our foes, incense as a token that he will rise from the dead. Gold, not God. Gold also as a token of his overcoming Satan and all our foes. Incense as a token that he'll rise from the dead and be exalted above things in heaven and things in the earth. And myrrh in token that he will drink bitter gall and feel the pains of hell from Satan. And now, saith my son, I have revealed to you hidden mysteries which God revealed to me. Keep my commandment for yourself and for your people. And that was chapter 8. That's very interesting. I don't know if this is a true story or not. But somebody knew something about Jesus in this chapter. Okay. They knew something about Jesus. So was it somebody who wrote this after Jesus lived and they knew something, so they made the connections? Or was it truly a prophetic word in here? So he says his body and those gifts, the incense, myrrh, and gold, frankincense, will go in the ark with Noah's family. And then he will be buried in the middle of the earth. And I think it means that he'll be buried in the location of Israel, somewhere there, somewhere in that location in Middle Eastern areas. I don't think it means to the core of the planet. I think it means somewhere around that area, which they call the middle of the earth. The Israel, Egypt, Middle East region, all of that. And he says, my body will be found and plundered. They will steal those gold, incense, and myrrh, but they will be preserved. And then when the kings come from the east to bring gifts to Jesus, to see him as a baby, they will bring those, so they're recycled back and returned to Jesus. And they have their own symbolism. This is very interesting. If it's a true story, it's very interesting. If it's not, it is a piece of art. Oh, so sad. Chapter 9. When Adam had ended his commandment to Seth, his limbs went limp. His hands and feet lost all strength. His voice became silent, and his tongue ceased to speak. He closed his eyes and gave up the ghost. So he died. But when his children saw that he was dead, they threw themselves over him, men and women, old and young, weeping. The death of Adam took place at the end of 930 years that he lived upon the earth, on the 15th day of Barmudeh, after the reckoning of an epoch of the sun, at the 9th hour. That's very detailed. So there's a note here saying Barmudeh is the 3rd month of the Egyptian calendar. The epoch is the number of days into the moon cycle that the solar calendar begins. Thus, it is the difference in days between the solar and lunar calendar. Continuing chapter 9. It was on a Friday, the very day on which he was created, and on which he rested, and the hour at which he died was the same as that at which he came out of the garden. Interesting. Then Seth wrapped him up well and embalmed him with plenty of sweet spices from sacred trees and from the holy mountain, and he laid his body on the eastern side of the inside of the cave, the side of the incense, and placed a lampstand in front of him that kept burning. Then his children stood before him weeping and wailing over him the entire night until break of day. Then Seth and his son Enoch, Enos, there's different translations here, and Canaan, the sons of Enos, went out and took good offerings to present to the Lord, and they came to the altar upon which Adam offered gifts to God. But Eve said to them, wait until we have first asked God to accept our offering, and to keep the soul of Adam his servant by him, and to take it up to rest. And they all stood up and prayed. Very interesting. Chapter 10. And when they had ended their prayers, the word of God came and comforted them concerning their father Adam. After this they offered their gifts for themselves and for their father. And when they had ended their offering, the word of God came to Seth, the oldest among them, saying to him, Seth, 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 3 times. As I was with your father, so I will be with you, until the fulfillment of the promise I made your father, saying, I will send my word and save you and your seed. So the Messiah, Jesus Christ. But as to your father Adam, keep you the commandment he gave you, and protect your seed, your children, and keep them from that of Cain your brother. And God withdrew his word from Seth. His word. They keep using the word his word for Jesus. So that means Jesus, the Messiah, the Son, visited Seth and talked to him. It was him. Then Seth, Eve, and their children came down from the mountain to the cave of treasures. But Adam was the first of whose souls died in the land of Eden, in the cave of treasures. For no one died before him, but his son Abel, who died because he was murdered. Then all the children of Adam rose up and wept over their father Adam and made offerings to him 140 days. It's very interesting. They always do 140 days. Why? Is there a significance to that? Let me see how much more I have here. Okay, I'm somewhere halfway through. Okay, let me read one more chapter and then I will record the second video because this is getting long. Chapter 11. After the death of Adam and Eve. She died later, but she died too. I wonder how long between them. Seth separated his children and his children's children from Cain's children. Cain and his seed, so his relatives, went down and lived to the west, below the place where he had killed his brother Abel. But Seth and his children lived to the north, on the mountain of the cave of treasure, in order to be near to their father Adam. And Seth, the oldest of his people, tall and good, with a worthy soul and of a strong mind, stood at the head of his people and tended to them in innocence, patience, and meekness, and did not allow even one of them to go down to Cain's children. And because of their purity, they were named children of God. And they were with God instead of the host of angels who fell, for they continued in praises to God and in singing songs to him in their cave, the cave of treasures. Then Seth stood before the bodies of his father Adam and of his mother Eve, and he prayed night and day and asked for mercy for himself and his children, and that when he had some difficulty dealing with a child, God would give him counsel. But Seth and his children did not like the mundane work, but set themselves to do heavenly things, because they had no other thought other than praises, worships, and psalms to God. Therefore did they at all times hear the voices of angels, praising and glorifying God, from within the garden, or when they were sent by God on an errand, or when they were going up to heaven. They were going up to heaven? Oh, the angels. They were hearing the angels. They couldn't see them, but they could hear them. I don't think it means Seth and the people were going up to heaven. I think it means the angels were going up to heaven. Because of their own purity, Seth and his children heard and saw. Oh, they saw them too, the angels. The garden was not far above them, only about 15 spiritual heavenly cubits. Spiritual cubits. 15 spiritual cubits. I don't know what that is. 1 spiritual cubit is equal to 3 cubits. There you go. 1 spiritual cubit is equal to 3 cubits of man, altogether 45 cubits. Seth and his children lived on the mountain below the garden. They did not sow nor reap. They made no food for the body, not even wheat, but only enough for offerings. They ate the flavorful fruit of trees that grew on the mountain where they lived. Seth often fasted for 40 days, as did also his oldest children. The family of Seth smelled the smell of the trees in the garden when the wind blew that way. They were happy, innocent, without sudden fear. There was no jealousy, no evil action, nor hatred among them. There was no animal passion. No one among them spoke either foul words or curse. There was neither evil intention nor fraud. The men of that time never swore, but when under hard circumstances, when men must swear, they swore by the blood of Abel the just. But every day they compelled their children and their women to fast and pray and to worship the Most High God in the cave. They blessed themselves by being near the body of their father Adam and anointed themselves with it. And they did so until the end of Seth drew near. Okay, so when he says that they swore, it probably means that they were making some sort of promise or something, some sort of like swearing, as in the legal term, not as in cursing. But to anoint themselves with Adam's body, that sounds weird. I don't know what that means. Okay.